So I've talked about the 76ers center position before, where Joel Embiid is of course the guy now because he's just seems like he can be a top tier talent in the NBA. Then you also have Jahlil Okafor and Nerlens Noel, and it seems that Nerlens, based on Twitter yesterday, has demanded a trade out of Philadelphia as he doesn't want to be there, which makes sense as their logjam combined with just how bad they've been for a few seasons. I imagine Nerlens is looking at it like, I don't really want to be here anymore. But Nerlens' situation is interesting for a few different reasons, so let's dive into it. Of course, when we start with Nerlens Noel, he's an athletic big man who, in my opinion, should be playing the center position. He has shown an ability to run up and down the floor and beat other centers or just big man with his quickness and his speed. Also has good verticality around the rim, allows him to catch a lob. And defensively, he's shown a really nice ability to defend the pick and roll, provide help defense. And I think Nerlens has the ability to be a DeAndre Jordan type of center. Now, if he can get to the point of DeAndre's level of being one of the best defensive players in the NBA, I don't know, but I think he's on the right track. But I also think he has not gotten the right opportunity in Philadelphia because besides just having a lot of really bad perimeter players around him, guys who can't get him in a pick and roll, guys who can't force the defense to pay attention to them for a little bit so he can get a dump-off pass or finish an alley-oop or anything. He's had the logjam with Jahlil Okafor last season, as Nerlens was not the lone man in the paint. As Jahlil Okafor was often the guy defending centers, and as a result, Nerlens has to defend power forwards, which, okay, he does have some really nice athleticism for a big man, and if he gets switched onto power forwards at times, I'm sure he can do well there. But Nerlens is best at the center position where he is the lone man inside, allowed to move around however he wishes on defense, and then you have someone else defending a power forward. When it's in that situation, Nerlens is very good on defense. And I also think that would improve his rebounding as well. I mean, he's averaged about 8 a game for his career, or at least last season. But again, because he was at the power forward at times, he wasn't around the rim as much. If he's the guy at center, he's going to be closer to the rim, he's going to grab more rebounds. So I think Nerlens can be an athlete. Well, I know he's an athlete. A really good defender, a quality rebounder, and at least someone who's good enough offensively. If he could develop a 15-foot jumper, that would be awesome, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So I think Nerlens is really good, and I think he could help out a lot of teams. And it seems with his demanding of a trade that he's going to go somewhere, but it's interesting because he's a restricted free agent, and Philadelphia has the power to say, no, we're just going to keep you, which they would keep him for one season, then he would of course leave after next year because then it would be his opportunity to do that. So if the Sixers want to get the most value for Nerlens, they would trade him this season, and even though he only does have 1 year left, because of that restricted free agency, the team taking him on is not going to be at risk of like, well, he might leave. Like, well, no, you'll be getting him as a restricted free agent, so you can just, as long as you're willing to give him money, you can re-sign him. So with that being said, where are some destinations that Nerlens could end up at? Well, of course, the Sixers would want to get a perimeter player, as their point guards and shooting guards are just really not that great, whereas they have Simmons and Embiid up front, and then the power forward spot is a little up in the air. Could be Jahlil, whatever. Some potential teams I could see Nerlens being moved to this season, of course, there's the Boston Celtics. I think Nerlens would fit in very well there. He could be the center, whereas Al Horford would move over to the power forward spot, and Horford could not really get in Nerlens' way that much because Horford has the ability to defend power forwards and move around the floor on defense, whereas Nerlens could be patrolling the paint a little bit more. And then on offense, I mean, they wouldn't get in each other's way because Horford can shoot from everywhere. And then you would add another guy who would improve Boston's defense. He would also greatly help out their rebounding, as that is the one huge weakness they have right now. Do I think it makes them better than the Cavaliers? No. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's a type of player they could use. Now, how would that trade happen? There is the Brooklyn picks, of course. Would I give up a potential top 3 pick for Nerlens? That's kind of iffy, especially when Harry Giles seems to be a very similar player who's supposed to be coming out of the draft next season. Now that being said, Nerlens is farther along in his career, and Giles has some worries when it comes to his lower body health. So maybe, because the majority of big names coming out of the draft next year are point guards, and the Celtics are fine at point guard at the moment, so maybe they look at next year's draft and they say, there's no one here that we can really use right away, whereas we can use Nerlens right now. But there's also an interesting one with Jaylen Brown. Would they be willing to trade Jaylen for Nerlens? I mean, I really like Jaylen Brown. I like his composure. I like his ability to attack off the dribble, finish inside. He's shown some nice defense. He has also had his rookie moments. I mean, that's just to be expected, especially on a team that is expecting to win. But I really like Jaylen's potential overall, and I like the way he fits in with the Celtics. So if I had to choose, I would say no to trading Jaylen for him. But if you got to a point where you thought that all the upcoming stars in the draft were just not someone who could fit on your roster, yeah, maybe. I think another team is the Toronto Raptors. Now, the Raptors would be a little awkward just because he would probably end up at the power forward position, and again, like I said, Nerlens, in my opinion at least, is best at the center spot where he can be closer to the basket. But Toronto really does need to improve on defense, and I also think you could have lineups of Nerlens starting at center, or being at center. He's not going to start over Valanciunas. I mean, hell, maybe you bring in Nerlens off the bench. I don't think he would be on board for that. I think that would be a recipe for him leaving in a couple of years, but maybe Toronto would be desperate enough to do it because they do need to improve at the power forward spot and they do need to get better defensively. The moves could be Terrence Ross, who's been better this season as a wing scorer and shooter. Norman Powell is similar as well. Again, I don't think it's a perfect fit, but maybe the Raptors would just say, screw it, man, we got to beat the Cavs, and maybe they would go for it. I don't know. I also think with the way Terrence Ross has been playing, being more consistent, hitting his threes, he could be a viable starting shooting guard in the NBA. He's like 25 years old. Maybe the Sixers would take him on. Now, the Wizards are actually kind of interesting because they have struggled this season, and Bradley Beal, to start the year at least, was not doing well. His last 5 games, he's been awesome, putting up over 25 points a game efficiently, so if he keeps that up, then you don't even entertain this. But if Bradley Beal dips back down and the Wizards continue to struggle, maybe you entertain the idea of Bradley Beal for Nerlens Noel. I mean, John Wall and Beal have never really clicked, and there are some reports they don't exactly love each other. And this team also has to improve defensively as they have not been good. And I think Nerlens would definitely help him out there. I think he'd be an awesome pick-and-roll partner with John Wall. But they already do have Marcin Gortat, who has actually been pretty damn good this season, even as he's getting a little older, and his relationship with John Wall is really good. But I'm just saying, if the Bradley Beal experiment seems to just not be working as a combination of his health and not playing well, but again, his last 5 games he's been very good, so if he can keep that up and the Wizards can get respectable, then I think they'll be A-okay. Now, as far as the Western Conference, of course, there's the Phoenix Suns. I mean, the Brandon Knight for Nerlens Noel trade, you've seen it already. I think it makes sense, gives the Sixers a real option at the 2-guard spot, someone who can shoot, dribble, get it to Embiid and Okafor, as well as play off of Ben Simmons when he comes back and becomes the main ball handler. And the center spot in Phoenix, I mean, Tyson Chandler, he's actually been pretty good this season. He's one of the best rebounders in the NBA, and I think he could be someone for a winning team. I think Phoenix wants to hold on to him. Alex Len is still not really taken off in the NBA. He's had some good signs, signs of being able to catch the ball, finish down low, be a really good rebounder, which is the one thing he does have going for him. But then other times he struggles to catch the ball, struggles to finish, struggles to move around the floor well defensively. Nerlens is not about that life. Of course, he's athletic, he'll catch the ball, he can finish inside, he's really good defensively, and he's also a good rebounder. And then, of course, it frees up more space for Devin Booker. I think that move definitely makes sense for both teams. But the one thing that could be holding that back is Brandon Knight has sucked this year. 38% from the field, 31% from 3. He keeps that up, no one's going to take him on. But if he can be that ball handler as well as shooter that we expect him to be, his contract's actually really good. It's only about $12 million, which, given how much guys are getting paid nowadays, to get someone of Knight's value for the next few seasons would be really good. But he has to start playing well, man. A couple other crazy ones for you. The Timberwolves, if they wanted to trade like Chris Dunn for Nerlens, gives the Sixers a young point guard that I'm pretty sure they did want. The T-Wolves suck on defense. I think it makes sense, but then they're committing to Rubio at the point guard spot. Plus, Chris Dunn could end up being really damn good, and they might regret it later on. But then again, the tandem of Nerlens Noel at the 5 and Karl Anthony Towns at the 4, that could be really damn special. Towns still has to improve defensively. I mean, they as a whole do, but you know, there might be something there with that front court that maybe you just say, you know what, Chris Dunn, you might be really good, but this could be better. Now here's a real crazy one for you. The Portland Trail Blazers, who have been one of the worst defensive teams in the league, 9-10 at the moment. They have a few guys the Sixers might care about. Of course, there's Allen Crabbe, who seems like a shooter, not a bad defender, knows what he's doing, but his cap might be like 15 points a game at the very most. I don't know if that's enough for Nerlens. There's also CJ McCollum, and this would be an emergency strategy sort of thing where we fast forward a few more weeks, they're still really bad because their defense is just awful. They think Allen Crabbe or whoever could step in at the shooting guard position, and then you have Nerlens at center. Hey, I mean, is it a bit crazy? Yes, but I mean, if you're stuck, and they could be stuck moving forward if this doesn't turn around, because they're pretty locked in salary-wise for the next few seasons, so I'm just saying, I wouldn't be shocked if that ended up happening. But then again, maybe Allen Crabbe and some picks would be enough, and I think that would be better for the Blazers, because CJ McCollum's awesome, but who knows. Also, there's the Warriors. I mean, Patrick McCaw has looked cool in preseason. He hasn't put in enough NBA time to know if he's really worth Nerlens Noel for the Sixers. So I think those are some teams for you. I mentioned Buddy Hield for Nerlens a while ago. Buddy Hield has not been good at all. Seems like he just might not be ready for the NBA at this very moment. Maybe he will be in 3 weeks, but right now he's not, so I don't think that move happens. Now, if the Sixers wanted to be really questionable, they could just not trade Nerlens at all and just let the free agency cycle play out. I'm going to assume they don't do that because he's a talented player and they have holes in their backcourt and they could speed up the process by a little bit, especially now because you have Simmons as well as Embiid. You got your guys, man. You got your star players. You got the guys who we assume are going to be great in this league for a long time. So now you can start making moves.